Hello everyone, my name is Arnold and I am a YFC couple coordinator in Couples for Christ here in Singapore. Today, we're diving into a topic that's really important but often gets overlooked: our financial responsibility as Christians. We're going to explore how our finances should align with our faith and how we can use them to honor God and support His work. In our covenant orientation, which I believe that most of you has gone through, the fact that you are now here in your JPA, we touch on Christian culture. And today, we're zeroing in on how our finances fit into that picture. You see, our Lord Jesus wants every part of our lives. Yes, brothers and sisters, every part of our lives, including our money, to be guided by the Holy Spirit. So, in the next 30 minutes, we are going to talk about taking responsibility for God's work through our finances. Stay with me. So let's begin. There are three basic ways we use our finances in the Lord. Let's break it down. One is tithing, two is resource sharing, and three, it's almsgiving. Tithing is giving 10% of our income. Resource sharing is sharing our material resources to meet the needs of our brothers and sisters. And almsgiving, this involves giving money or goods to those in need. We will explore each of these in a more detail shortly. Now, you might be asking why we should do all of this. Good question. It's easy to maybe answer it in a perspective of our own opinion, saying that, well, our leader asked us to do it, so we should. While that is true, I think now we are given an opportunity to really understand why we have to do all of those three things that I mentioned above. So first reason is that we acknowledge that all belongs to God. Everything we have belongs to God. This might sound straightforward, but it's fundamentally the understanding of our financial responsibility. Brothers and sisters, God created everything. From the vast universe to the smallest detail in our lives, God is the creator. Whatever you have right now, God created it. In Genesis, it says there, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. This creation includes all our possessions: your home, your car, your clothes, your investments, even your money. They're all created by God. And if we're going to look on other passages in the Bible, in Psalm 24:1, it also says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. This means that God is the rightful owner of everything we have. Same thing in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 8. We are reminded that the silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of Almighty. So acknowledging God's ownership is not just a theoretical concept. It is a truth that underpins our entire approach to money. When we understand that everything belongs to God, it shifts our perspective. It means we're not just managing our own assets, but stewarding God's resources. This recognition should inspire us to handle our finances with greater care and intentionality, which brings me to the second point on why we should do this. So first, we acknowledge that all belongs to God. And second, we are merely stewards of what belongs to God. In Christian terms, a steward is someone who manages the affairs of an estate or household for the owner. Here's what that means for us. Being a steward means managing God's resources according to His will. We're not the ultimate owners of what we have, and I think we all know that. Instead, we were entrusted with it. Jesus' parables, such as the parable of the talents, illustrate this concept very well. We are given resources to manage wisely and productively. And going back to that parable, I think you know very well what happened to those three that were given different amount of talents. I'll let you be the judge on how you're going to do all of your, or how you're going to manage those talents that are given to you. Anyway, more into that on we are merely stewards of what belongs to God. As stewards, our goal is to manage these resources in a way that aligns with God's plan. This involves making decisions that reflect His values, whether it's on how we spend, save, or give. We should be asking ourselves, how does decision honor God? Does it align with His purposes? I think it's better and it's a good thing to really reflect on those, especially when we are in the midst of trying to splurge on the things that God gave to us, this financial thing that we have. How are we really going to make use of it? Being a steward calls us to act responsibly and unselfishly. It challenges us to view our finances not just as a tool, but also for personal gain. Not just as a tool for personal gain, but as instruments for advancing God's kingdom. Okay? So there are the first two reasons why we have to do this. Now we go to the third. We owe our prosperity to God. This understanding has very profound implications. You might be thinking and assuming that, hey, I have all of this because I work hard in those. Well, you can convince yourself that be the case. But the truth of the matter and the reality is, you have all of those because God allows you to have it. That's our Christian belief. If we're going to go to the Bible, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, verses 22, it says, "The blessing of the Lord brings wealth, and He adds no trouble to it." And this verse reminds us that our financial well-being is a direct result of God's blessing. Our abilities, our opportunities, and our resources, they are all gifts from Him. And if that is not enough to convince you, brothers and sisters, there's another verse in the Bible, in the book of Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 7. What do you have that you did not receive? This question is actually humbling and reminder that everything we have is a gift from God. It's not something we earn through our own efforts alone, just like what I emphasized earlier on. And understanding this should foster a sense of gratitude rather than pride, saying that, hey, I've worked hard on this one. I am the rightful owner of it. No, they all belongs to God. Poverty and riches are from the Lord. That's what it says in Sirach, chapter 11, verse 14. This is where we find ourselves in abundance or in need. It's a part of God's plan. Recognizing that our prosperity is from God helps us remain humble and thankful. When we see our financial blessings as gifts from God, it becomes easier to use them in ways that honor Him. It encourages us to be generous and to support causes that advance His kingdom. So, we've covered 3 already. Now we get to the number 4. We should use our finances to glorify God and participate in the spread of His kingdom. Yes, brothers and sisters, we are called to use our finances to glorify God and participate in the spread of His kingdom. Again, going back to our scriptures, to the Bible, Proverbs 3:9 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops." This verse highlights that our financial contributions should be an act of worship. It's about prioritizing God in our financial decisions and ensuring that our resources reflect His values. While God allows us to enjoy our possessions, they are not solely for our benefit. And I think you know this very well. We are called to use them to serve Him, to serve God, and to further His work on earth. This might mean supporting charitable organizations, funding missions, or helping those in need within our community. By using our resources to support God's work, we become active participants in His mission. Our financial contributions can help build churches, support missionaries, and provide aid to the poor. It's a way of contributing to something much larger than ourselves. Yeah? Okay, so we've covered all of those four. When we understand that these four reasons, which is, acknowledging God's ownership, being faithful stewards, recognizing our prosperity as a blessing, and using our finances to glorify God, we align our financial practices with our faith. And again, this perspective transforms how we handle our resources and help us live as a Christian values, or should I say, live out our Christian values in practical ways. Okay? So having said all that, those four reasons why we should do this, let's go back and understand the three basic ways on how we use our finances for the Lord. Now let's dig into each one of them. Okay? First is almsgiving. Let's start with it. This is all about giving money or goods to those in need. It's a key aspect of our Christian generosity and compassion. Almsgiving involves providing for the needy and the poor, both from within our community and beyond. We should not be confusing it with tithing, which I'm going to talk about in a little while. So almsgiving is actually additional and separate from our regular tithes. And the purpose of almsgiving is to directly address the needs of individuals who are struggling, especially our brothers and sisters in the community. And I know that most of us are sensitive to that. Now again, if we're going to go to the Bible, it has many passages that emphasize the importance of almsgiving. For example, in Psalm chapter 41, verse 1, it says, "Blessed is the one who has regard for the weak. The Lord delivers them in times of trouble." How convincing was that? And how liberating, if I may. In Proverbs, it also adds that whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and He will reward them for what they have done. Also in Matthew, it says that Jesus instructs us to give to the needy in secret, ensuring that our motives are pure and not for public recognition. Almsgiving might involve giving directly to individuals or supporting organizations that aid the poor. Sometimes you may encounter situations where someone in need cannot repay a loan or doesn't have the means to meet their own needs. Well, in such cases, outright almsgiving, where you give without expecting in return, can be the most effective way to help. And trust me, brothers and sisters, this act is very, very rewarding. Often, needs within the community cannot be met through resource sharing. However, when someone's need is beyond what can be addressed by loans or shared resources, almsgiving becomes a crucial way to provide support. And again, I think being in the community for quite a while now, I've observed this really happening, guided by the Holy Spirit, whereby people are just really moved to provide almsgiving to our brothers and sisters who are really are in need. And we thank God for that opportunity. Okay? So that's almsgiving. Number 2, resource sharing. This practice involves using our material resources to support others, and it's a vital part of living out our Christian values. Resource sharing means using our resources, like, when we are going to, maybe you're experiencing it right now, when we are going to a PA, sharing our cars, our home, or financial assets to meet the specific need within our community. For instance, you might lend your car to someone who needs it, or offer a place for a fellow believer to stay temporarily. And I think you know this very well, and maybe some of you are part of that recently concluded CLP in Cambodia. Cambodia is actually our mission area for us here in Singapore, and some of my group mates in the chapter, led by Brother Phil, went there in Cambodia, and they slept in the house of one of our CFC brothers and sisters. You see, that is resource sharing at its best, whereby our brothers and sisters are really freely providing and giving and sharing their resources for the work of the Lord to be done here on earth. What a noble act. Resource sharing is also connected to broader initiatives like ANCOP, which I hope that all of you are familiar. ANCOP is short for Answering the Cry of the Poor, and CFC social development programs. By donating our time, talent, or material resources, you contribute to building the Church of the Poor and supporting various outreach projects. Another important avenue for resource sharing is the One Mission Fund, and I hope that you brothers and sisters are aware of it. If not, you can always ask your chapter leads or your unit head or even your household head to know more about it. This fund supports global mission work by getting every member involved. Yes, you and me, brothers and sisters, excluding the KFCs. Each CFC area is expected to contribute 10% of its monthly tithe collection to this fund, and members can also donate directly. This collective effort helps expand the reach of CFC's mission work around the world. So, we've tackled 2. We talk about almsgiving, we talk about resource sharing, and now we talk about the last one, which is tithing. And I'm smiling because when I gave this talk here in Singapore, we have an interesting conversation about it. But anyway, so tithing is a foundational practice in Christian stewardship and involves giving 10% of your income to support the work of the church. Tithing is about giving 10% of your income, just like what I mentioned earlier, and that is 10% of your income after tax. This includes all sources of income, wages, investments, rental income, and more. The tithe is meant to support the church work, and in CFC, we use it for evangelization, member formation, just like what you are having right now, JPA, leaders training, community activities like the ANCOP, administrative expenses, and other expenses related to the worldwide work of CFC. You see, brothers and sisters, just trying to emphasize about member formation. We need resources to do all of these activities. And it is coming from you and me through tithing. Okay? So the practice of tithing is rooted in Scripture. In the book of Malachi, it states that when we don't tithe, we are essentially robbing God. Because the money is His in the first place, and He's just asking us to turn over 10% of His own money. So, If we don't tithe, we are robbing God. That's what it says in the Bible, brothers and sisters. It's not me. We tithe so that there may be food in God's house. The passage also promises that when we are faithful in tithing, God will open the floodgates of heaven and bless us abundantly. Yeah? Okay, while tithing is not part of, or not a formal part of our covenant in CFC, it is a critical aspect of our Christian life. It reflects our spiritual growth and commitment to God's work. Its importance transcends the boundaries of any specific covenant or organizational requirement and reflects on the following areas of our life. First, stewardship. Maybe it's a good thing to ask ourselves, do we accept that everything belongs to God and we are merely stewards of them? In which case, do we obey God as how we handle our finances? You see, these are the different areas of our life, of our values, of our belief, and somehow is going to be weighed or examined or given emphasis by this act of basic ways of making use of our finances for the Lord. So, first, stewardship, and the next one is gratitude. Do we acknowledge that whatever good things we have comes from God? That without God's blessings, we would not enjoy the things we do. Priorities. Is God and His kingdom first in our lives, even before our own needs? It is also a test of our faith. Do we believe that as we put God first, He will provide whatever we need in life? It is also a test of our conversion, of how have we grown in Christian generosity, in selfless, in simplicity of lifestyle, in detachment, zeal for God's kingdom. What is the extent of our desire to see God's dominion expanded? Do we realize the financial needs for doing such mission? So all of these, brothers and sisters, these are all good reflection questions that in most of the time is triggered by how we are really being responsible to these graces as being given to us by God, primarily our finances. Okay? Let's take a moment to ensure we have the right perspective when it comes to giving and financial stewardship. It's easy to get caught up in the details, but keeping the bigger picture in mind, it helps us stay aligned with our faith and our mission. It is important to give not because of the need for our money, but because it is the right thing to do. What do I mean? It is crucial to remember that while God's work on earth does need financial resources, God Himself does not need money. Why? Well, God is the creator of the universe. He owns everything, from the grandest galaxies to the smallest grains of sand. In the book of Psalm, chapter 50, verses 10 to 12, it reminds us that for every animal of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine, and all that is in it. You see, brothers and sisters, maybe what God is doing us here is that we are becoming a privilege of being a co-worker of God. The need for money is a practical aspect of our earthly existence. It's God's way of inviting us to participate in His work on earth. When we give, we're not just meeting a need. We're engaging in the privilege of being a co-worker in building His kingdom. It's an opportunity for us to partner with God in His mission, making a real difference through our contributions. Isn't it that lovely and good? You see, you and I being a co-worker of God to build His kingdom here on earth. What a privilege, brothers and sisters. And I hope, just like many of us in the community, looking up into our leaders, our example, may you have the heart to be a co-worker of God's army in spreading His kingdom here on earth. Okay? Another perspective to look at that this tithing is that we should not really focus so much on the 10%, but on the 90% we keep for ourselves. You know? It's important to shift this focus because, yes, tithing is significant, but remember that all of it, 100% of our resources, it belongs to God. And again, we are merely stewards of what He has entrusted to us. The fact that God allows us to keep the majority of our income, it is a testament to His generosity and trust in us. Yes, brothers and sisters, He has the trust in us. You know, by focusing on the 90% we retain, we see that God is generous, that He is allowing us to use the bulk of our resources for our needs and desires. This perspective helps us appreciate our financial situation and encourages us to be grateful stewards of both of the 10% we give and the 90% we manage. Yeah. Okay. You might be saying that, what if I don't have enough? I'm already tithe and then I am still being asked to tithe. Okay. No pun intended. So let's address a common concern. What if you feel you don't have enough to give? Again, referring to the Bible, you know this. The story of the widow's mite in Luke chapter 21 verses 1 to 4. Jesus observed a poor widow putting 2 very small copper coins into the temple treasury. And Jesus said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all the others. Despite her poverty, her sacrifice was significant because she gave all she had." You know, brothers and sisters, again, going back to the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 10. God promises that if we are faithful in our tithes, He will, again, saying this, open the floodgates of heaven and pour out blessings. You know, this promise isn't just about material wealth, but about God's overall provision and generosity in our lives. Sometimes our experience of God's bounty is limited by our own reluctance to be generous. And I say that again. Our experience of God's bounty is limited by our own reluctance to be generous. And you've heard it many times, and I'm going to say it again. It is in giving that we receive more. Now, if you really find yourself in a situation where giving a full tithe feels impossible due to maybe financial constraints, remember this. It's acceptable to give what you can. Again, going back to the widow's mite. Because God values the heart behind the gift more than the amount. God values the heart behind the gift more than the amount. The key is to give sincerely, brothers and sisters, and to give with faith. trusting that God will provide for your needs. Okay? I hope I'm able to shed some light on how we are really is going to freely engage ourselves to what we are called to do, to one of our purposes in life, which is, managing our finances. Now, let's talk about on how you're going to give your financial support. So when it comes to giving your financial support, we have several options. Here in the community, you can give it, if you choose to give cash, you can place it in an envelope, mark the envelope, print your name, amount, date, and the purpose of the donation, and then seal it. And if you have checks, make them payable to Couples for Christ and write the purpose of the donation on the back of the check. Now, where are you going to give it? You can give your contributions in several ways. Directly, you can give it directly to the CFC Global Mission Center or your local CFC center. You'll receive an official receipt for your donation. Or you can also give it through your household head. And your household head will provide you with a receipt when your contribution is passed to the office. I don't know how it really works there in Cambodia, but I was told while talking about this with Brother Phil, I believe that you brothers and sisters have this QR code. Those things that I mentioned were the suggested ways on how to do it, but if you have this established method of giving your love offering or your tithe, do so. The key thing here, brothers and sisters, is that we have to do this regularly. And I mentioned it already in the earlier part that it is actually not the amount, but really the heart that gives. So, if I may suggest, it doesn't really matter how much it is, so long as you really give your love offering regularly, every month. Are we okay with that? Okay. So don't worry, I'm already in the last part, and maybe it's just me just trying to wrap it up. So in conclusion, as we come to the end of this discussion, I want to leave you with key thoughts. Giving our financial support to the work of CFC is not just a duty or an obligation. It's an expression of our deep gratitude to God. When we reflect on all that God has given us, our lives, our talents, our resources, we realize that everything we have is a gift from Him. And if we truly love God, we are called to love our neighbors as well. This love is not just in words but in action. And one of the most tangible ways we can show our love is by giving back to God part of what He has generously entrusted to us. This act of giving is more than just a financial transaction. It is a reflection of our concern for others, especially those in need. Moreover, our giving is a powerful indicator of the condition of our hearts. You remember those questions that we have earlier on? And also the depth of our conversion in the Lord. Where we choose to invest our resources, it speaks volumes about where our priorities lies. As Jesus reminds us in the book of Matthew, for where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. So, as we move forward, let us remember that our treasures, our time, our talent, and finances are not ours to keep, but so to steward for the glory of God and the service of others. So, brothers and sisters, may our giving be a true reflection of our love for God and our commitment to His work through CFC. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.